Thank you for that. We have 100,000 private hire drivers in London. 94% of them are from BAME community.
Sorry, sir. This has to be about the environment and air quality.
I'll get onto that. Yeah. So basically, the mayor is introducing
you
congestion
need to go very
charge.
quickly, otherwise I'm going to stop you.
So basically, by introducing the congestion charge, how will that reduce the congestion? Because from your own assessment, it just states 1%, and it's just going to reduce. It's going to increase congestion. So I don't know how the congestion charge would make a difference to the congestion.
This is strictly speaking
air quality.
Right. Okay. Air quality. Oops. Okay, Mr. Mayor, when you answer that question in a moment, if you can condense that to air quality. Next one was paddle 3, I think, which is the gentleman in the middle with the grey jacket. No, that's the wrong person.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, the audience and Mayor. Thanks, Bexley Council.
Madam, please, could you sit down? I will call you in a moment, okay? Let the gentleman ask his question. No, sorry, you won't interrupt it. There are hundreds of people here, and they have the right to ask their question. Sir.
Thank you. So, thanks, Bexley Council, that give us the opportunity to ask Mayor the question. My question is, I'd like to ask you that I have heard that you already paid the taxi cab £65 billion, and I am doing the representative of the 110,000 PHV drivers. I am one of them.
Sir, this has to be about air quality and environment.
The thing is, my very short question is, you said that everything crime is going up.
No, sorry, sir. Can we cut this paddle off, please? This is not about the air quality and environment. Move on to the question number 2. It's paddle number 2 on the right-hand side. It's the lady in the middle.
Evening. You said...
I'm warning you once. If I have to warn you again, you'll be escorted out of the building. Please sit down. Please take your seat. I'll come to you in a moment, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
So, in relation to the first question and the second question, who was ruled out of order, look, the air in London is a killer. There are thousands and thousands of premature deaths each year because of the poor quality air. Combination of nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and particulate matter. Now, some people can keep their heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening, but it's happening. Thousands of premature deaths. There are children with stunted lungs, underdeveloped lungs because of the bad quality air. And there are adults with a whole range of health issues, from asthma to dementia to heart disease to cancer, directly attributable to the poor quality air. And you're right, there are 120,000 licensed private hire vehicles. When the congestion charge was first set up in 2003, there were, roughly speaking, 4,000 minicabs coming into central London. Some of them were unlicensed, and so to get them to be licensed, there was an incentive to make them exempt from the congestion charge. We now have, on average, on a daily basis, 18,000 coming into the congestion charge area, many just driving around and around and around for their next ride. It's not sustainable. And by the way, the cost to the NHS each year is £3.7 billion. And we've got people taking days off sick because they're unwell. So there's an economic cost, plus the misery to people who are made sick because of the poor quality air. So you can do nothing about it, or you can do nothing about it.
Please don't call out, ladies and gentlemen, otherwise you will be removed.
Or you can take action. So what we've consulted on is to remove the exemption that currently exists for private hire vehicles. And the evidence is that will lead to better quality air in London, but also less congestion as well. So some people, want to have less congestion by having no cyclists on our roads. Some of us believe the way to have less congestion is to have fewer cars on our road and have more people walking and cycling and using public transport. And so, and I'm not going to apologise for doing that.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick contribution from Assembly Member Russell, and then we're going to take some more questions. Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, on the question of private hire drivers and the congestion charge, I was one of 3 Assembly members who voted against a motion to, that was trying to get the Mayor not to put... No, wait a minute. So I did vote for private hire to pay the congestion charge. There were 3 Assembly members who backed the Mayor on that. But I believe that the operators should be paying and not the drivers, who are some of the most exploited workers in London.
Number 7.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm a London taxi driver, and my question will cover disabilities, air quality, everything, age, safety, everything. I need to be able to get my customers to their door. We've been told to buy an electric taxi, which is costing me £65,000. Why are you excluding us from Tottenham Court Road, Bank Junction, Tooley Street and other roads? I need to be able to get my told. Tooley Street and other roads. I need to be able to get my customers to the door. Disabled, we're 100% disability, what's the word? You know, we take wheelchairs, accessible, elderly people, drunk people. I work through the night, I get people off the streets. Do not exclude us from any roads, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
3 minutes, so if you can get those questions answered. In fact, we have 2 minutes. If you can get those done in 2 minutes, that'd be great.
So in the first question, one of the concerns that we've had is the lack of availability to the public when the air is bad. And so in the past, some really important research has been buried away and hidden away. And we've made sure that we give you as much information as possible so you can plan. So for example, people who suffer from hay fever know when there's a high pollen count and can take action to address the symptoms of hay fever. What about poor quality air, those who suffer asthma or have a child or other issues? And so we're making sure that we make publicly available data about the quality of the air a day in advance when we know it. And we've made sure that all the bus stations, where there's matrix, the tube stations, but also you can get the access on your phones, you know the air quality of data in relation to the air quality, so you can take action. And you're right, the parts of London you visit every day, Charing Cross, Aldwych, Strand, often have really bad air. And what we're trying to do is to improve the air there by reducing the amount of polluting vehicles. And actually, having more vehicles, like some people want to do, and have wider roads, leading to more vehicles, lead to more poor quality air. And some of the older vehicles are the most polluting air, so we've got to make sure we get them off those parts of London with the worst air, which causes the misery you're talking about. One of the things we're invested in is more air quality monitors as well. And so idling cars outside schools, big problem, but also vehicles dropping off things we order from the internet to places of work are also a big problem. We're trying to work with those to make sure we reduce those. Maybe at the end stage they can drop off by bike or by electric vehicles rather than by polluting vehicles as well. The second question, I mean, the questioner gave some examples of the huge advantages of the black taxi trade. Every single black taxi is accessible to those who are disabled. We've now made sure they will use contactless. We're trying to make sure more bus lanes are accessible to black taxis. We've also recruited more compliance officers to make sure people who are breaching the rules have action taken against them. And I want to thank the LTTA and Unite for making sure they help us with the marshalling. Against them. And I want to thank the LTTA and Unite for making sure they help us with the marshalling that takes place. We've had more cab ranks introduced. But you're right in relation to the fact that if inadvertently, by reducing a black taxi dropping off a passenger to their home, we may be providing a disservice to disabled Londoners. So some of the things you've mentioned aren't in our control. They're councils, and there's often a good reason. We carry on talking to the councils, and as I said, the Deputy Mayor is here, and she speaks to council leaders all the time, and we'll be responding in due course to the one that's under my control that you mentioned in relation to road. But you're right, we've got to balance the needs of other Londoners by the fact that the black taxis provide a unique service for many Londoners. You've got to accept a fare, for example. You can't say no like a PHV can. So I accept some of the challenges you face, and we're working with those that represent black taxis to address some of the concerns that you've articulated tonight in your question, and thanks for raising that question. The last question is a really important question about the ultra-low emission zone. There's some misinformation that we need to clarify. So the ultra-low emission zone that comes into this April only applies for the congestion charge area, April 2019. And so the most polluting vehicles, if you want to come into central London, will have to pay an additional fee to come into central London. Why? Because there's a direct link between the vehicle that's most polluting and the poor quality air in London. Actually, though, it's the poorest Londoners that suffer the worst air. When you look at a heat map of London, where the worst air is the poorest Londoners who own the fewest car, by the way. So in the most affluent parts of London, where there is more car ownership, there's better air. So this issue of fixing the air is an issue of social justice. It's poorer Londoners who suffer the worst air, who have the most asthma, who have children who have the biggest stunted lungs, and adults have cancer, dementia, and other sorts of issue. But you're right in relation to poor Londoners can't afford to change their vehicles. And so we're lobbying the government to help us with a national diesel scrappage scheme, because many of Londoners were encouraged to buy diesel by experts saying diesel emits less carbon than petrol. And so people were encouraged to buy diesel rather than petrol, and are now being told, well, diesel's polluting as well. And so we carry on lobbying the government to help us in relation to a scheme to help people move away from polluting vehicles to cleaner vehicles. Because the extension is not until 2021, I'm optimistic we'll get some progress from the government to help people like you to move away from older vehicles, because you can't afford to buy a new vehicle to get a vehicle that's less polluting.
Okay.
Yes, hello, good evening. I have a question regarding to, actually it is interrelated. It is a socio-economic inequality that might lead some of your policies. I'm talking about Mayor Sadiq and the TFL. And it has two sides. One is the ultralight emission zone, and the other one is really congestion charge we have had, but it is economic issue. And the reason I said is that actually, why are you actually excluding private hire, which has actually invested a lot of cars which are semi-electrical, while black cabs, which I actually consider they are our colleagues actually, by the way, that they have actually 5 times more pollutant than the cars we have, which are Toyota Priuses. Isn't it a contradictory actually in terms of actually the clean air you are talking about, and that it will lead to socio-economic inequality, which actually really I think is quite contradictory. So why is it happening actually? That is my real question. Okay. And the mayor also talked about those people on the poor people actually are the ones who are going to suffer, because if I simply talk about myself now, I have invested a car which actually needs a plug-in where I cannot actually charge in London, but at the same time you are going forward actually for the money. Now, I have invested a car which actually needs a plug-in where I cannot actually charge in London, but at the same time you are going forward actually for the money, rather than actually implementing the issues that actually leads us into economic prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really important. The second issue is, look, this idea that only some parts of the transport sector is going to play a part is not true. Everyone's got a role to play, whether you're a private hire vehicle, whether you're a plaque taxi, whether you're a bus, whether you're a heavy goods vehicle. Everyone has a role to play to clean up the air in London, because we have a public health emergency. And so if you speak to black cab drivers, they will complain that we're encouraging them to have electric vehicles, the LEVs, and that the grant we're giving them is not enough to move towards a 65,000 new taxi. You speak to heavy goods vehicles, they're complaining that we're obsessed by road safety and making sure their vehicles are as clean as possible, and we're charging them £100 to come into central London. And you as a private hire vehicle driver are complaining about the exemption being taken away from the congestion charge. Let me be clear. I will not apologise for trying to clean the air in London to make sure there are less premature deaths in our city directly caused by the bad air. I'm not going to apologise for that. You know, when you meet children who will have permanently smaller lungs, stunted lungs because of the bad quality air, we've got a choice. We can just ignore it like previous generations did before 1950, or we can be brave. And you know, the same thing was said about the great smog in the 1950s. Why are you bothering trying to clean up our factories in relation to this great smog? And the idea that politicians then weren't going to be brave is ridiculous. Politicians were brave, and we cleaned up these poisoning factories from central London and moved them elsewhere, or made them cleaner. And the same is going to go for polluting vehicles, and we're going to clean them up. We're going to make sure our city is safer for those who breathe this stuff in.